Today's video is about something that I think is very important in order to improve the way you speak English, but I also think is not talked about with people who are learning English. So what exactly am I referring to? I'm talking about the way we pronounce the endings of words in English, right? I want you to look at these two words here, okay? And I want you to think about how you would pronounce these words. If you find yourself pronouncing both of these words the same way, then this video is for you. Because in English, the endings of words and how we pronounce the last letter is very important. And why is this different than other languages? Obviously, I don't know all the languages in the world, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of languages soften the endings of their words. Because I've lived in Poland and Spain, and I'm relatively familiar with both languages, I can tell you that those languages soften the endings of their words. Let's take the city of Madrid. This is a great example. Do you see how there's a D at the end of Madrid? And in English, we pronounce the D very strongly. We say Madrid. But in Spanish and in Polish, the D at the end of Madrid turns into a T. And this happens in a lot of languages where the ending is almost softened, where instead of saying Madrid, they'll say something like Madrid. And what that means is that sometimes the ending changes, or sometimes the ending is pronounced so delicately that there's really not a stress on that letter. So I want to go back to these two words, crab and crap. Do you hear the difference in the way that I'm pronouncing them? If you speak a language where you soften the endings of your words, then you probably pronounce these words the same way, and you probably pronounce them crap and crap, as opposed to the correct English pronunciation of crab and crap. Do you see how the endings of my words pop? You can even hear it in the word pop. Do you see how the P in the beginning of pop is just as strong as the P in the end of pop? If your language softens the endings of words, you would have pronounced this word pop, as opposed to pop. And I know this might sound ridiculous. If you speak a language that doesn't do this, I realize that this probably sounds really stupid, but that is the correct way to speak English. And I want you to ask yourself, have you ever been speaking to a native speaker and they didn't understand what you were saying? And even though you thought you were saying everything correctly, you were using the right words, and you thought you were using the right pronunciation, well, it's possible that they did not understand you because of the way you're pronouncing the endings of your words. Now, I want to specify here that this only applies to consonants. What is a consonant? A consonant is the opposite of a vowel. If you don't know what a vowel is a letter such as A, E, I, O, U, and in English, sometimes Y. Those are vowels. The rest of the letters are called consonants. And almost always, it is important in the English language, when you are saying a word that ends with a consonant, it is important that that consonant is strong. I'm going to give you an example of my name, David. Do you hear how the D in David is the same in the beginning as the end? David. When I was living in Poland and Spain, I constantly heard people calling me David. If you remember from my previous video about the letter I, you will remember that the I is not pronounced E. So there were two mistakes that people were making when pronouncing my name. Number one, saying E instead of I. So again, in English, it's David, id. But because I is pronounced E in many languages, people were saying E instead of I. Again, David. And do you hear how the ending is a D? Vid. David. But if your language softens the endings of words, then it would be unnatural for you to say id, David. You would probably say David, which, as you could probably tell, is not correct. So now I'm going to give you a few examples, and I want you to test yourself. I want you to see how are you pronouncing these words. Let's take a look at these words here. How would you pronounce these? Again, if you are pronouncing these words the same, then you are pronouncing at least one of those words wrong. We can see the first word is bed. Do you hear how strong the D is? Bed. The second word is bet. And do you see how strong the T is? Bed and bet. The next words are cab and cup. Do you see how the ending of cab is a strong B, cab, as opposed to the word cup? And from experience, I know that for some of you at home, you may have pronounced both of these words cap, cap and cap. Often I will have English learners asking me, what is the difference in the pronunciation of these words? And then they'll show me, X, Y, and Z, different words. And often when I see these words, I'm surprised that anyone thinks that these words could sound the same. For example, crab and crap. These words are pronounced so differently because of the ending that as a native speaker, I would never think that these words sound the same. I remember when I was younger, anytime I was eating crab, and I offered my dad some crab. My dad is from Poland. And I would say, hey, Dad, do you want some crab? And for him, it was really funny. He'd always laugh and be like, it is a piece of crab. And I was like, what? Yeah, it's a piece of crab. What do you mean? He's like, I don't want any crab. And I'm like, I don't understand what he's talking about. I didn't get it. But for him, the words crab and crap sounded the same, or at least the way that he pronounced these words was the same. But hopefully, now that you understand the difference in the pronunciation of these words, hopefully you can hear and understand that one word is crab and the other word is crap. So if you want to improve your English, if you want to sound better, if you want people who are native speakers to better and more easily understand your pronunciation, then you need to, and I mean you need to start paying attention to the endings of words. And I realize that you cannot make this change immediately. I know that. And that's not why I'm teaching you this lesson today. I'm teaching you this so that you start paying attention and start to realize the changes that you need to start making now. Here's a couple more examples. Rag and rack. You hear the difference. Rag and rack. G and k. I think the trick is to imagine how the k would sound in the beginning of a word, like cow. And I realize that with rag and rack, you might be pronouncing it rack and rack. So could you imagine instead of saying k, ow, you would say cow? No, you would say k, cow. And that is how you need to be pronouncing it when it's at the end of the word. Same thing with David. If you were pronouncing the first D of David like you're pronouncing the last letter, David, well then you would be saying Tavit, but you're not saying Tavit. You're saying David. So the reality is that you know how to make a D sound. The hard part will be to consciously realize that the last letter is also pronounced like a D and not like a T. But the reality is that sometimes we have words that end with silent letters, like the word love. We're not pronouncing the E in love. Instead, we're pronouncing the V, love. And I want you to think about, are you pronouncing the V in love? Or are you pronouncing the V like an F and pronouncing it laugh? Because if you're doing that, it sounds like you're saying laugh, love and laugh. One is a V and one is a F, just like the word Valentine's Day. I'm pretty sure that you're not saying Valentine's Day. So when you see a V at the end of the word, remember, it never changes to an F. It always is pronounced like a V, love. Same thing with a word like massive. Are you saying it massive or are you saying it massif? Do you hear the difference? One is with a V and one is with a F. I think now you have a better understanding of the pronunciation of endings of words, but again, I want to remind you that if you are not pronouncing the endings correctly, people, number one, may not know what word you're saying, or number two, and what's possibly worse, is that they will think you're saying a different word. Just like the words bed and bet, or cab and cup, or rag and rack, or my personal favorite, crab and crap. One last thing I want to mention before I go is that occasionally we have words that end with consonants and we don't pronounce those consonants. And the best example are words that end with ing, like goin', or runnin', eatin'. Now obviously you could say eating, or running, or walking, or drinking, but the reality is that that does not sound natural. And I think most native speakers are not gonna pronounce the G in runnin'. Sometimes they won't pronounce the G at all, goin'. I'm going to the store. Other times we'll pronounce the G softly, running. You could hear that there is a little bit of a G, but I'm not stressing it. I'm not saying running. Not in the same way as if I had a word like song. Do you hear how the G in song is strong? Running, song. So my advice to you before we get going is practice this. Pay attention to how native speakers are speaking. Pay attention to the endings of words. And most importantly, pay attention to the way you are pronouncing the endings of your words, especially when there is a consonant. So let me know in the comments what you thought of today's video. Did you like it? Was it helpful? Was this new information, or was this something that you already knew? And if it is something you already knew, is it something that you're doing, or is it something that's difficult for you to start implementing? Make sure to share this video with your friends and family. As you know, my channel is still relatively small, but it is growing, and I promise in the future I will have lots more fun and exciting lessons for you that I think will help you improve your English. So give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you have not done that yet, and like I said, make sure to share it with everyone you know. That way my channel grows. Also, let me know in the comments what other topics, what other subjects you want to hear about in the future. Thanks for being here with me today, and I look forward to seeing you on more episodes of American English with Dave. Bye, guys.